Hello, my name is Owen, and welcome to another installment of my quick recommendation series where I give you a streamlined recommendation for a movie or a TV show that I think you should watch because there's a lot of content out there. There's a lot of good content out there. You can't possibly watch it all. You can't watch all the good stuff. So why don't you just watch what I tell you to watch? Because I am the decider. Yes. Woo! I mean, you don't have to listen to me. I don't really know that much. I don't even see that much. But that's the point. If you don't see a lot of stuff, you got to know what to watch. That way you can just focus your energy on that. That's what I'm trying to do here with our next film I am recommending, The Banshees of Inisherin. This movie came out a couple months ago. It's now on HBO Max. It stars Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson. The duo previously teamed up in Bruges, another film that they worked on together. It's kind of like a dark comedy. It's a lot of fun. You guys should check it out if you haven't already. But this movie takes place on an island in Ireland, and it's a period piece about like a simple town. Like they're farmers, they're sheep herders, they're fiddle players. They go to the pub every night. It's a very like relaxing aesthetic vibe, and there's a lot of like beautiful like establishing shots of the setting, and it's absolutely fantastic. And I just really want to visit there and just like be a farmer on that island. It looks so peaceful. But there's drama because Colin Farrell's character Polric is best friends with Brendan Gleeson's character Colm, and Colm decides that he doesn't want to talk to Polric anymore. And that's like the impetus for the film. Like, what's going on? It's like, if you've seen the trailer, he's kind of like, why don't you want to talk to me anymore? And he's just like, man, leave me alone. I'll cut off my fingers if you talk to me again. It's like, what the hell is going on? And it's just like, the whole movie revolves around this drama, this petty drama between these two friends. And that's like, that's the plot. So I'm going to break this review down into like the characters, what I liked about the characters, what I liked about the themes, and just like maybe things that might turn you off if you're a certain kind of person, but I'll get to that. But the beginning, the characters, I love these actors, and this duo is so good together. And obviously Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson do a great job, but also Colin Farrell's sister in the movie, the character Siobhan, also has a fantastic performance and carries the film. And also Barry Keoghan, he was in Eternals. He's like the new Joker, kinda, and he's like in a bunch of other new stuff nowadays. But he plays like kind of like the village, not the village idiot, but like he's in the film, they call him like the dumbest one on the island, but he's actually like super insightful, and he's like an abusive father, so he's a complex character there. And what I really liked about this movie, it's a slice of life movie. And what I mean by that is the stakes aren't very high. Like the backdrop of the setting is like the Irish Civil War, but the characters and like the setting aren't really impacted by that, other than them just like seeing explosions and gunshots off in the distance as like a background. And I'm not really sure like what the metaphor is like with that time period. I'm sure someone smarter than me can figure that out. It turns out the metaphor is that Polric and Colm's relationship mirrors that of a civil war, which is why it's kind of the backdrop of the film. And that's in the sense that Polric and Colm were two friends. They got into a conflict in the Civil War. It's like two groups in the same country got into conflict, and the conflict starts over something petty or something that definitely didn't need violence to solve. And then the conflict causes like irreversible damage to both parties, which actually is a pretty deep metaphor that completely went over my head when I watched it. But in retrospect, knowing that information now, it makes the film that much better. But the stakes aren't very high. It's about petty drama between two grown men, and it just feels low stakes. And that might turn some people off. And I guess I'll just bring the things that might not work for some people up earlier. A lot of people think that this movie is boring because, like I said, it's slice of life. There's no real stakes, and it doesn't resolve in a way that like a grand meaning is revealed. Like it's a comedy and there's comedic moments, but I actually found it more dramatic than I was expecting. So if you're expecting like a more punchier story, like maybe like In Bruges was, or like a really deep meaning, you kind of have to dig for the meaning more, and the stakes aren't that high, and the plot's not that gripping, and those all sound like horrible things and just would lead to you thinking this movie is boring. But I found it charming that the stakes weren't high, because I think the performances did a very good job of keeping me invested in the characters, and I was just in their world for 2 hours, and I was in their drama, and I wanted to. I was with Polric, and I wanted to figure out like why he wasn't talking about him, and that brings me to like the themes of this movie. So if the plot's not really that important, and I'm just there for the characters, like why would you want to watch this movie? Because I think like the underlying messages there were very interesting, and while they weren't solved, and I'll kind of get into that, they made me think. So basically, Now, spoilers here, if you don't really want to know like about the themes of the movie, I guess. But Colm's character doesn't want to talk to Polrick because he finds him dull. And really, the movie explores the idea of like legacy and what does it mean to have lived like a meaningful life. Because Colm's a musician and he's writing a new piece, and he says that in one of the scenes, he says that my music could last centuries, but if I was just talking to you my whole life, I would die in a generation, everyone would have forgotten me. And this is a conversation that I've had with a lot of people in my life about legacy and what does it mean? Like, do you want to be remembered after you die? Like, how do you want to be remembered? And it was basically Colm felt that Polrick was preventing him from creating a legacy for himself because while he was a nice guy, he wasn't doing anything meaningful to his life. And he found their conversations pointless. And Polrick is a very nice man, and he just doesn't understand. He didn't see legacy that way. He sees it more important to be kind and be friendly to people and have like relationships with them, even if it's not like about changing the world or how they're gonna leave their impact on the world. So it's kind of like the two ideologies clashing against each other. And Polrick is the main character of this story. We follow his perspective throughout the whole thing because Siobhan's character has a similar pull to Colm's character, but there's kind of two sides of the same coin where Siobhan wants to make something of herself, but she's not going to do it in like the brutish way that Colm is, where he says like, you're in my way, you're preventing me from doing this. Siobhan says, I need to get what I want. If I want to do more, I need to do that. So she like leaves the island, which obviously very hard for Polrick. But I just thought it was very poignant, like this message of like legacy and like the two characters' ideologies. But then also, what I also found very charming was just the arc of Barry Keoghan's character, and like obviously he's like abused by his father, and like everyone sees him as like the dumbest person on the island essentially. But he actually has some very like poignant insights into life, and it gives you. And while he seems like kind of like a screw up character and kind of like a piece of work, Barry Keoghan like brings his character to life and gives him depth and gives him meaning. And I'm not going to spoil like what happens with this storyline, but it has an impact on Polrick's character and how he changes in the third act and how he changes his actions. And this movie doesn't resolve very satisfyingly. It kind of ends at a stalemate, some would say plot-wise, which might draw some people off, but I think I almost preferred it that way. I haven't exactly figured out what I think the deeper meaning is of like that stalemate at the end, but I think that it's one of those movies where I will be thinking about it, and I'll want to watch it again to like really explore those meanings. Because another thing they also have is the song that Colm writing is the Banshees of Inisherin. So like a banshee obviously like lures people to their death, and there's a quote in the movie where he says, maybe banshees don't like lure sailors to their death anymore, they just sit back and watch. And then there's this character of like the old woman who's like basically like represents death, and she just appears everywhere. She's creepy and everyone hates her, and they hide from her, and she's like always there. And she tells Polrick, she says 2 people will die, 1 person will die on this island, like maybe 2. It's kind of like, what the heck? Like, what kind of story is this? Like, this was like a dark comedy about 2 friends, and like this creepy old witch is hanging around. But it's just it's a very artistic movie, and that will turn some people off. But it's fascinating, and I think people should check it out if they have 2 hours, because the performances will carry you through the boring parts, I promise you that. And there are funny moments that are worth getting to. But I also just found it kind of moving, and it is a little sad at some points too, which I think is a good mix for any movie. I want to feel a whole gambit of emotions. So sorry, this is kind of like a vague review. I think it's a very vague movie, and I haven't exactly figured out what it's about, but I think that's what's so alluring to me about it. So definitely check it out if you have time. It's on HBO Max, The Banshees of Inisherin. Thank you so much for your time.